Eli Thompson lived alone on his sprawling ranch, a lonely figure surrounded by miles of dry plains. The ranch was his father's legacy, passed down from generation to generation, but after the loss of his wife and daughter, it had become a prison of isolation. He never really wanted this life, but the ranch was all he had left: his work, his memories, and his grief. Every morning, Eli woke up before dawn, tended to the cattle, and worked the land. He didn't mind the physical labor. In fact, it was the only thing that kept his mind from wandering to painful memories. But even the most dedicated work couldn't stop the deep ache in his chest. Eli had often thought about hiring a cook, someone to prepare a warm meal for him, someone to talk to after a long day of work. He was tired of eating the same bland meals, of sitting at an empty table, of hearing only the wind's whispers through the open windows. But Eli was a proud man, stubborn even, and he always told himself that he didn't need anyone. One cold winter evening, when the wind howled through the empty ranch, Eli was seated by the fire, nursing a cup of coffee, when he heard a knock at the door. The sound was so faint that he almost dismissed it as the wind, but when it came again, louder this time, his curiosity got the best of him. He opened the door cautiously, expecting to find a lost traveler or a desperate soul seeking shelter from the storm. But instead, his eyes fell on a trembling young woman, no older than 20, clutching a small bundle wrapped tightly in a blanket. "Can I help you?" Eli asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. The girl was shivering, her face pale and her clothes ragged, as though she had been traveling for days. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto Eli's, and she barely managed to speak through chattering teeth. I need help, please. I'm lost," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Eli's heart skipped a beat. He was no stranger to hardship, but seeing this young woman standing there, barely able to keep herself together, triggered something inside him. His first instinct was to turn her away. He didn't have the resources to take care of anyone. He was already struggling to make ends meet, but then his gaze fell on the bundle in her arms, and he saw a small tuft of hair peeking out. "Is that a baby?" he asked, his voice softening. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she whispered again, her voice pleading. Eli hesitated. He was alone, with no one to help him. He couldn't afford to take in someone, let alone a newborn. But the woman's desperation was palpable, and something inside him, some deep, buried instinct, told him he couldn't turn her away. "Come inside," Eli finally said, stepping aside to let her in. The girl stumbled inside, her eyes searching the dimly lit house. It was clear that she hadn't been in a warm place for a while. She seemed relieved, but the exhaustion in her eyes was unmistakable. As she settled into a chair by the fire, Eli went to make tea, silently wondering what had led her to his doorstep. The silence between them was thick with tension. Eli had no idea who this girl was or where she came from, but he couldn't deny the overwhelming feeling that her presence had disrupted his lonely existence in a way that he didn't fully understand. After a few moments, the girl spoke again, her voice trembling. "My name is Emily," she said. I don't have anywhere to go. I ran away from a bad place. I was forced to work for them. They hurt me, and I couldn't stay anymore. But then the baby came, and I didn't know where to turn." Eli set the cup of tea down in front of her, his heart aching for her. He could see the weariness in her eyes, the hopelessness in her voice. He had no idea what she had been through, but it was clear that she was in desperate need of help. "Where are you from?" Eli asked, his voice softer now. "What happened to your family?" Emily hesitated, her eyes flickering with pain. "I don't have a family," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They're all gone. I've been alone for so long." Eli's heart clenched at her words. He understood loneliness, but this This was something deeper, something more tragic than he could fathom. He didn't know what to say, so he simply nodded, offering her the warmth of his home. As the fire crackled in the background, the silence between them stretched on. But this time, it felt different. The weight of their shared solitude hung in the air, and Eli realized that in some strange way, he wasn't as alone as he had been before. But little did he know this unexpected visit would soon unravel a mystery he could never have predicted. The next few days passed in a blur. Emily settled into a corner of the small ranch, and Eli found himself for the first time in years feeling a sense of purpose beyond the grueling tasks of ranch life. He prepared meals for her, offered her a warm bed, and even took care of the baby, whose presence seemed to fill the house with life. But as much as Eli tried to focus on the simple act of helping Emily, a growing sense of unease gnawed at him. The longer she stayed, the more questions he had. Emily's story didn't add up. She never mentioned where she was from, and when Eli asked about her family, she always changed the subject. Eli tried not to push her too hard, but his curiosity began to get the better of him. One evening, after Emily had tucked the baby into her makeshift crib, Eli sat across from her at the table. "Emily," he said carefully, "I need to know more. I don't want to push you, but your story, it doesn't make sense." She looked at him, her eyes wide with fear. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. Eli sighed, rubbing his hands together. I can't help you unless I know what's really going on. You said you ran away from a bad place, but you've never told me where that was. You've never mentioned a name or how you ended up here." Emily's face turned pale, and for the first time, Eli saw her fear not only for herself, but also for the baby. She looked away, her hands clutching the edge of the table as if she were trying to hold herself together. I can't," she whispered. "They'll find me. They'll hurt us both." Eli leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Who will find you? Who are you running from?" Emily's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, Eli thought he saw the truth in them. Something dark, something hidden. But before she could speak, there was a knock at the door. The sound was sharp and urgent, and for a moment, everything stopped. Emily stiffened, her face draining of color. She stood quickly, clutching the baby to her chest, as though she were ready to flee. "Eli, please, don't open the door," she begged, her voice frantic. Eli stood up, confused and concerned. "What's going on, Emily?" But before he could reach the door, it creaked open. The wind howled through the cracks of the old wooden door, and standing in the doorway was a man Eli had never seen before. The man's eyes scanned the room, landing on Emily. His expression was cold and calculating, and a sinister smile crossed his lips. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice dark and smooth. "You didn't think you could run away, did you?" Emily's eyes widened in terror, and her grip on the baby tightened. "No, please, no. I didn't want to go back." The man stepped forward, his gaze never leaving Emily. "You're coming with me, now." Eli stood frozen, the weight of the situation sinking in. He had no idea who this man was, but one thing was certain. Emily wasn't safe, and neither was her baby. Without thinking, Eli rushed to the door, slamming it shut with all his might. The man outside banged on the door, shouting for Emily to come out, but Eli was resolute. He couldn't let this man take her. "Emily," Eli said urgently, "get to the back room. Stay there with the baby. Don't come out." Emily hesitated for a moment, fear written across her face, but then she nodded, retreating to the back of the house with the baby. Eli's heart raced as he turned to face the man outside, but before he could react, the door flew open with a force that sent him stumbling back. The man stepped inside, a grim expression on his face. "You really think you can protect her?" he sneered. Eli's mind raced, and in that moment, something inside him snapped. He was done with running, done with the loneliness. He had to protect this girl, this baby, no matter the cost. "I'm not letting you take her," Eli said, his voice shaking with fury. The man laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the empty house. "You don't get it, do you? She's mine. And no one gets in my way." Just as the man lunged toward him, a loud crash rang through the air, followed by a deafening silence. The unexpected twist would change everything.